At Associated Architects, we've been working with the university for about 10 years now, and I think what's really interesting is that over a long period of sort of consolidated working, we really get under the skin of the campus, and we learn to understand the context. And by working with people, we get to know the personalities, and that just makes things a lot easier. So when we come to design new buildings, we already understand the way that the placing of the buildings in the kind of urban landscape will affect the environment, and that just makes life a lot easier. So for the library, that's a very significant building, of course, and in the hierarchy of buildings in the university, it's one of the very important ones that has to have a very important place. So we've been very mindful of that when we thought about siting the building aside the Green Heart. Well, I think we're always concerned about the way people feel when they move into the buildings, and there are one or two tests that we use as designers here. I think we always want people to feel that the arrival experience has been really good, and so it's not just a question of designing the right building, it's about designing the right building in the right setting. And as people arrive, we don't want them to feel intimidated by the building. We want them to feel they can move in and be welcomed as proper users in every case. And so obviously with the library there are issues of security. We have to make sure that at a certain point people can't just walk in and get access to the material. So the building is welcoming, inviting, it's open to the public, people can penetrate so far, they can use the common facilities. Beyond that, the building is designed to be very legible, so it should be easy to circulate, there should be clarity about the way it's organised. So every users at all levels, whether they're going to use a book and research or to study, or whether they just pop in as a visitor, they should all feel good about using it, should feel good. One of the most important factors we had to consider in the design of the library was this whole thing of placemaking and making sure that we designed a library which was appropriate for place and was appropriate as a building which has significance for every single student using the facility. We're very mindful equally of the kind of building and the kind of environment we're providing for students, and so we didn't want to design a building that was a receptacle for books. We wanted to make it enjoyable for students and users and visitors alike. We wanted to make it not feel like a private environment for visitors who might come and use the cafeteria and the gallery space. And so we have to balance all those requirements and place the building in a way and derive its form in a way that it looks like a really important building. I think as far as the school's concerned, there are some rather different issues there. I mean, it's a very interesting project. Birmingham University being very much ahead of the game and responding to the government white paper. We have a lot of experience with school design from the BSF programme and from other academies that we've been working on. So we're trying to merge, if you like, a number of environments here. But I think what's been very important for us is the idea of treating children as young adults. And so this building has a central forum which has space at the ground floor for catering and for socialising. It's a common area which is shared with staff and the university students. With the idea really of treating people like adults, allowing them to develop as young adults, treating them with responsibility, but giving a sense of enclosure and surveillance that means that all the kind of pastoral issues are dealt with naturally, and then the teaching hubs, teaching spaces, year groups are all disposed around that space to make a sense of community really within the school. So again, rather focused on the idea of a building for its users. We've really enjoyed designing proposals for the Lapworth Museum, and I think where I'd start from with that is really a similar analogy with the library. As books were to traditional libraries, maybe artefacts were to museums, and so I think the Lapworth Museum had a bit of a character of being a receptacle for objects. And what we're keen to do there is respond to a very interesting historic building, something which has a tradition that goes beyond the Department of Geology's use, but to look at the building, the way it was used, the forms and shapes of the building originally, to use other precedent, other buildings we've done, specifically things like the School of Art refurbishment that we did, which involved a Grade 1 listed building, to look at how we could insert new additions sensitively. But I think overall it's about refocusing the building so that it's a museum for visitors and for users, and it's about making the subject of geology not appear dry, but appear, an interesting journey, so people arrive, are received well, and then are engaged with what's going on, and then are free to use other facilities, educational development facilities and things that simply weren't available before. So fascinating, and a great group of people to work with.
Brilliant, thank you.
It's very interesting when we have to think about working in the context of a red brick campus, and I think my response to that is twofold, really. First of all, Birmingham is obviously metaphorically a red brick campus, but if we look at the building stock, it's really only the Aston Webb buildings, the semicircle around the clock tower, that is specifically red brick. There are odd red brick buildings elsewhere in the campus, but what strikes me about it is it's a very varied campus where people have worked through the different decades, and they've done the very best they could at different points in time. Specifically, I'd be thinking of the Arup Associates concrete buildings, Muirhead Tower, Met and Matt. So we mustn't forget that the university also has a legacy of other buildings, other forms, and so I don't think it's important to get hooked up on materials and materiality. It's more about creating a sense of place, working with this existing campus, recognising its characters and qualities, and providing buildings which are appropriate and reflect their own point in time, as other people have done in their own periods.